Back in the 90s, when I bought my first very own PC, one of the first things that I learned about on the information superhighway was Aeolian harps. It's a type of stringed musical instrument that's played by the wind. You're supposed to put this in your window, and the wind will blow through and cause the strings to vibrate. And this concept has really stuck with me over the years. I think first because of my interest in musical robots. This instrument has a lot of interesting properties. It's fully autonomous since it plays all by itself without any human intervention. It's aleatoric since there's a certain amount of randomness in how it plays, although I guess you could say those things of wind chimes as well. But I think the other reason that this has stuck with me is because it's just one of those weird and wonderful things that kind of characterized the early internet. And in fact, even though I have advanced degrees in music, up until a week or so ago when I built this one, I had never heard or seen one of these in person. So today I'm going to show you how you can build your own, and even though I do have access to a wood shop, I'm going to do this in my apartment with the most rudimentary tools that I can, so that you can convince yourself that you shouldn't wait half of your natural life to make one, because it's actually not that hard. And before we get started, I think it's useful to spend a moment reviewing prior art. And this is one of those things that's probably been invented or discovered many times independently by many different people throughout history. For instance, according to the Talmud, King David hung his harp by his bedside at night so that wind could blow through it and cause the strings to vibrate. And I don't know what kind of hurricane was blowing through King David's bedroom at night, but this at least shows that the authors of the Talmud were aware of the concept. Having said that, all of these modern designs trace their lineage back to Athanasius Kircher, the kind of sadly unsung godfather of all weird and wonderful musical inventions, who in his 1650 treatise on the topic in book 9 gives this gem, a musical automaton, which plays perpetually only by means of the wind or air. And the description he gives of this instrument is actually really helpful, and as far as I know, it's untranslated. So I think it's worth taking a moment to look at it in more detail. He says this instrument should be made of the most resonant pine wood. He says its dimensions are 5 by 2 by 1 hand breadths in length. He says it should have at least 16 strings made of animal intestines, which I do not condone. We are not using animal intestines today. He says the strings are strung between a nail on this end over here and a little twisty tuning peg thing over here. And there are 2 bridges. And down here, he says that all of the strings should be tuned to the same pitch, either in unison or in octaves. And he says that it's wonderful and truly paradoxical how many different harmonies will sound when you do it this way, even though all the strings are tuned to the same note. And he says this part in Greek, so you know he's really excited about it. And down here, in contrast to what King David did, he says that this instrument should not just be hung out in open air, but it should be hung in a somewhat confined space, I guess so air can pass through it without necessarily passing around it. And then in a later treatise, Kircher gives this diagram. So he's embedded one of these Aeolian harps in this huge tube, and if it seems like he doesn't have a very good grasp of Bernoulli's principle here, that's because Bernoulli hadn't lived yet. But down here, he appears to be saying that all of the strings should be of different thicknesses, although this is kind of a run-on sentence. I may be misinterpreting it. So I'm not going to follow Kircher's design exactly, but I did come up with this design. And for those of you who are playing along at home, I have complete plans on my website with a parts list and dimensions and everything like that. And most of this is going to be built out of 1/8" or 3mm thick birch plywood. And so I'll start by cutting that to size, and the pieces that I need are basically the bottom of this box, the soundboard, and the lid, which are all the same size, and then also the 2 sides of this box, which are also the same size as one another. And I designed it so this whole thing can be made out of a single sheet of 20 by 30 inches or 500 by 750 millimeter plywood. And the length of the plywood kind of determines the length of the finished instrument. So I'm just going to cut this to width, and I'm going to do that just using a utility knife. And I happen to have this long piece of aluminum bar stock that I can use for a straight edge. And I'm not going to say that this was easy, but I made like a million light passes, and eventually I did make it through. And the cut ended up being pretty nice, actually. And I only needed to make 5 cuts like this, so it wasn't that bad. And so here are all the plywood parts. So now I'm going to work on assembling the bottom box part of the instrument, and I'm going to focus in on these 2 hardwood blocks at the end here. And I got this big piece of oak square section at the hardware store. And I need these 2 pieces to be exactly the same length as one another. So I started out by cutting one piece a little bit longer than I needed. And I'm just using this cheap little coping saw to cut this. But once I had that piece, I kind of clamped it to the main piece so I could cut both pieces to the final length at the same time. And that would hopefully give me 2 pieces that are exactly the same length. And I guess that went kind of okay. Actually, that cut ended up not being very straight, so I spent quite a while trying to sand this down flat, and eventually I guess I just sort of gave up, but I did get it pretty good, and in the end that ended up being good enough, so this is going to be perfectly fine right here. And so now I'm going to dry fit the whole bottom part of the instrument together just by taping it together. But then I'm going to remove the sides so that I can glue down these hardwood blocks and have them be exactly in the position that I want them to be in. Of course, I did that to both ends. And the reason that I removed the sides is because you can't really just glue plywood to plywood, edge to edge like this. And so I need to put some bracing in there. And the bracing is just these square dowels that I got at the hardware store. And I don't really think it matters what kind of wood these are. But this is just going to give me more of a surface that I can glue the plywood to. And it'll also add a little strength to the instrument. So I just measured that and cut that to length and glued it to the bottom of the box. And I did that to both sides. And then once those were dry, then I could glue the sides of the box onto those. Is it weird if I don't say anything in this part? I don't know, it's glue. And then I also want to add a little bit of this bracing kind of to the top so that there'll be something to glue the soundboard to once I get there. And speaking of the soundboard, that's what I'm going to work on now. And I'm going to start by drilling this sound hole in the plywood that I cut out before. And I just happen to have a hole saw that's a pretty good diameter for this, so that's what I used. And the drill here is really the only power tool that I'm going to use in this whole build. And this does not look like it's going to go very well. And it really didn't, but eventually I got through there, and in the end, the hole wasn't that bad. I cleaned that up with sandpaper later, and that was perfectly fine. And so now I'm going to work on the tailpiece, and this is kind of inspired by the design of the tailpiece on a classical guitar. That's what that looks like. And I'm going to make this out of that same oak block as before. So I just need to cut a big chunk out of it. So I cut it to length and that went fine. And then I started trying to cut out the chunk that I need. And that was a little bit more than this poor little coping saw can handle. So at some point I ended up switching over to a hacksaw. And that actually worked better than I thought. In fact, if you're going to do this whole project with just one saw, I might recommend the hacksaw as opposed to the coping saw. And I just cleaned up the cuts a little bit with sandpaper. And then I also rounded over the corners just a little bit because the strings are eventually going to be tied off to those. And now I need to put holes in there for the strings to go through. And I made this template so that I can get the holes in exactly the place that I want them. And this is available on my website if you want to use it. Although I kind of screwed up when I printed this one and it ended up getting kind of scaled down a little bit for some reason. So I just very carefully transferred the hole locations onto my piece of wood directly off of my computer screen. I wouldn't necessarily recommend doing it that way, but it did work. And then I used a nail to mark out the hole locations just to get the hole started basically. And then I'm going to use a drill guide to keep the hole straight so I can drill straight down through this piece. And I actually didn't have a drill block of the right diameter, so I just drilled the holes a little bit small, and then I came back and reamed them out to the correct diameter. And I wouldn't say that that looks great. I kind of got a lot of chip out, but this is definitely going to work, and it's more than fine. And then this part probably isn't strictly speaking necessary, but the tuning pegs that I got came with these little brass eyelets. So I'm just going to hammer the eyelets down into my holes. And what I like about these is that it's going to allow me to try out different strings, because some strings come with the end of the string just plain, and you have to tie it off onto the tailpiece. And other strings come with a little bead on the end. And so these eyelets are just going to help with those strings a little bit. But anyway, then I just glued my tailpiece to the soundboard. So now I'm going to work on the two bridges, and I have the bridges on there at a 20-degree angle, and that's because all the strings are going to be tuned to the same pitch, but hopefully having different tension on the strings will encourage different overtones to sound on each string as the wind passes through it, or at the very least, hopefully it'll give a little bit different timbre across the different strings. And the bridge pieces have this kind of rounded profile, but I did happen to find a piece of hardwood so-called shoe molding at my local hardware store that already has the right profile cut into it, and it comes in these super long pieces, but luckily they have a saw at the hardware store right there so you can just hack off the piece you need. So I did that. And then once I got home with it, I folded a little 20-degree angle in this piece of paper, and then I used that to mark the angle that I want to cut into the bridge. And I cut two of those, and this I actually kind of messed up a little bit. You can see I cut two identical pieces here, but that's not right. Actually, the two bridges should be mirror images of one another. So I had to go back later and cut a second one. And so this is what they're supposed to look like, if that makes sense. And this would probably be a good time to glue the bridges down to the soundboard. However, I didn't do it at this point because I wanted to play around with their placement a little bit once I was further along in the assembly. However, it turns out that the placement didn't end up really making any difference as far as I can tell. So I'll just show myself gluing them on here, and hopefully the lack of continuity won't be too disturbing for you. And so now I can finally glue the soundboard on to the rest of the box part of the instrument. And that came out pretty well. I guess the joinery is about as good as you would expect given the tools that I'm using here. And it sounds good. It has a nice resonant sound to it. So I'm starting to get pretty excited now. And so I bought these tuning pegs, and at this point I need to drill holes for them. And I didn't really show it in this 3D model, but the holes for the tuning pegs need to go down into this hardwood block. And again, I have a template for this, and this one I actually fixed my printout, so this should be right. And again, I marked the position with a nail, and I used a drill block just to get those holes nice and vertical. And this is what it looked like. And again, I got a little bit more chip out than I would have liked, but it's actually not as bad as it looks in this picture. Once I sanded it down, it wasn't that bad. And so I'm also going to make a lid for this instrument. This is the lid, and the assembly is pretty straightforward. I already cut this piece of plywood out, and now it's basically just a matter of cutting down all these little pieces of bracing and gluing them on. And then the lid is also going to have these two side pieces, and I probably could have cut these out of this same hardwood block from before, but I also did find another piece of oak at the hardware store that's already the right size, and so now I just need to cut it to length, so that should be a lot easier. So yeah, these are the side pieces, and then I just glued them on and tried to make sure they were square as I was doing it, and that was pretty straightforward. And then I sanded the whole thing down, and I sanded the sides pretty aggressively to add some of that sweet, sweet retroactive precision that Matthias Wandel is always talking about. And the top I sanded pretty lightly, and then I coated this with several coats of polyurethane, and I sanded lightly between some of the coats. And then I can put the tuning pegs in, and I wasn't really sure what I was going to do with the strings, so I wanted to measure the resonant frequency of this instrument. So I did an experiment which I've done many times on both of my channels now, which is that I put a surface transducer and a Metal Marshmallow Pro contact mic onto my instrument, and I played white noise out of the surface transducer and recorded it with the contact mic, and then I plotted this spectrum, and this is what that looked like. And I guess the biggest peak here is right around 640 hertz about. And that's a little high. I don't necessarily want my strings to be that high pitched, but actually the fundamental of the strings isn't going to sound anyway. It's mostly just going to be harmonics. So half of that might work, like around 320 hertz. And that ends up being convenient because the high E string on a guitar is about 330 hertz. So that's pretty close. And it turns out that my strings are almost exactly the same length as guitar strings. The other thing that I did, kind of off camera, is I put a bunch of different strings on here, including wound and unwound nylon and steel strings of different diameters and fishing wire of different diameter. And I blew a really strong fan through there. And the only string that really made any sound was the unwound nylon string. So I ended up ordering 6 nylon E strings and then 6 nylon B strings. And I put the E strings on the longer side of the instrument and the B strings on the shorter side of the instrument. So if I tune them all to 320 hertz or whatever half of the resonant frequency is, then the E strings will probably all have a little bit less tension on them than they normally would, and the B strings will have a little bit more tension on them than they normally would, but that seems like it should be about this sweet spot for this instrument. And that's it. Yeah, end of project. You're done. So that is how you build your own Aeolian harp. And I'd like to make some more of these. So if you want one, but you don't feel like making your own, let me know. I'll make you one. In fact, I might just put a listing for this on my website, or you can email me. And this video has already gotten a bit long. And if you want to hear this, you're gonna have to subscribe to my other channel, Metal Marshmallow, and in a week or so, or whenever we get windy weather, I'm gonna post a video there about how to record this. And that'll be mostly just sounds of this playing. So please go subscribe to that channel, and of course subscribe to this one as well if you haven't already. But anyway, yeah, I guess that's all I have to say about that for now. So thanks for watching as usual, and I'll see you next time. Bye!